Okay, so let's go ahead and open up another action figure. This is another Masterverse figure, and you can tell it's the old box design. And this is Grizzlor. I got him for relatively cheap off of Amazon. You can see why I got him for relatively cheap. There's a big old hole in the box. So other figures in this assortment, which I've never seen these at retail. Yeah, Merman, Buzz Off, and Faker. And there's a nice piece of artwork of Grizzlor on the back. There's a piece on the side. And it's got a little bio in the back, and it reads Grizzlor, hairy henchman of the evil horde. Few are feared across Etheria more than the bloodthirsty beast, Grizzlor. Captured and brainwashed by Hordak, Grizzlor now loyally serves the leader of the evil horde as the gatekeeper of the Fright Zone, as well as a feral soldier to be unleashed on the battlefield. You know, uh-oh, I'm about to sneeze. Dang. Oh, that was a big one. One of the original concepts for the horde was that this bat logo was supposed to be kind of like this symbiotic creature that would attach itself to the chest of the victim, and then Hordak would be able to control their minds. So maybe that's hinted at a little bit in the bio there. Anyway, let's go ahead and open them up. So Faker, I'd been looking for, and he's kind of hard to find for less than a premium price. So I'm probably going to have to pay a little extra for Faker once I get in. Merman, I was able to find Merman for like a pretty decent price on Amazon, and I hadn't really looked for Buzz Off, but anyway, this came loose in the packaging, which is Grizzlor's crossbow, and it's got like the head of the crossbow is like a one-eyed dragon, and you can see it's got like energy for the string and where the crossbow bolt would be. So this is like an energy crossbow kind of thing. Now there's no handle for this, so this is something that just kind of like clamps to his wrist. I had another one of these Ford crossbows around here somewhere, but this one is designed much more like the original toy, whereas it's supposed to kind of click in like that, and when you press it, it pops out a little bit. So, but this one's just kind of like a solid thing. That's a little more typical with the more collector type figures. So he's got a couple of extra hands, and here's kind of like a clawing hand, and here's one that is a solid fist, and both the hands that are actually on the figure are kind of gripping hands. And as we saw in the artwork, Grizzlor has a new accessory that the original Grizzlor did not come with, which is this cool battle axe, which has got a horde emblem on it. Other than that, it looks very similar to a He-Man double-bladed battle axe, but the horde emblem makes it kind of obvious where his allegiances lay. So yeah, I got this one on Amazon around the same time that I got China and what was the Clawful. I got all of those at around the same time. So I figured I might as well finish off this batch of figures that I got. And it looks like that rubber tab has come loose. And there's not a rubber tab around his other hand. So there's one over here that isn't even like connected all the way. And then there's not one on his left arm. And here he is out of the package. Now, the original Grizzlor figure from back in the 80s was entirely covered in this faux fur, like his entire torso and everything basically except for his face and his arms and legs. So the entire torso and most of his head. And this one, the harness kind of came loose. So I'm getting the harness back together right now. And I might be misremembering this, but I seem to remember that the original Grizzlor toy had a yellow harness, but I do believe that on the She-Ra cartoon, they did depict his harness as being black. Dang it! Ugh, I got fur in my mouth now. But that was the only way I could get that to go all the way. It just wasn't wanting to go in all the way. That's probably how it came loose. But this Grizzlor only has fur over like the top part of his torso, and then all the fur on his head and his loincloth is actually sculpted in. And I figure this was mainly done to save money, so they weren't putting as much faux fur onto the figure. But I actually think it works out really well, and I like the look of the sculpted fur on the head better, actually, because that means it's a little more sort of controlled and what it actually looks like in the models for the figure, like the animation model or what he was drawn to look like in the comic book. So we might as well get a shot of his boss. So here he is with Hordak, and you can see he stands a little bit taller than Hordak. Even if you count Hordak's collar, the top of his head reaches just a little bit beyond that. I imagine this guy shares a lot of parts with Beastman. I mean, that would make sense since he got furry arms, furry legs. Now, something else that was funny about the original Grizzlor figure is even though he's generally depicted as being like a large, bulky guy, if you look at the arms on the Grizzlor figure, they're actually not as muscular as your average He-Man figure. So he's actually quite a bit more puny than your typical Masters of the Universe. But I would not let that don't allow that to underestimate his strength in your mind, because remember, chimpanzees are much smaller than human beings, but they're still like ferociously strong, like way stronger than a human being. So you would not want to get into a fight with a chimpanzee. A chimpanzee will literally tear you apart, like that poor lady down in Florida who got attacked by somebody's pet chimpanzee, and he literally like ripped her face off and ate part of it, and oh, that was nasty. Anyway, the original Grizzlor was probably something like that, but this Grizzlor is no doubt a beast. He's got huge arms and huge legs, and let's have a look at him next to He-Man. And I do believe this is the same loincloth piece, but it's a different belt, because Grizzlor's belt has kind of a little bit more of a Batwing aesthetic to it. I don't know if you can see that, but to make it look like the Horde. But the loincloth itself seems to be the same exact one that He-Man has. But of course, the belt and the loincloth are a different piece in these figures generally. And probably Hordak has the same. Yeah, Hordak has the same belt. So you can see it a little better on Hordak, how he's got that Batwing look to it. Grizzlor's belt is basically the same, except for it's black instead of silver. All right. And then he's got the battle axe, like I said. So you can put the battle axe in his hand. Let's go ahead and do that. And he looks badass with the battle axe. I do like that. And then the typical Horde crossbow. Pretty much every, at least out of the first wave, at least, every member of the Horde came with this crossbow. And honestly, I don't think it's too impressive of a weapon. I didn't really use the crossbows very much when I was a kid. And frankly, most of the Horde had interesting gimmicks that you didn't really need like an extra weapon. So this weapon was just kind of an afterthought and kind of a unifying element of the Horde characters, I think. But yeah, he's a really impressive looking figure. Like I said, a little bit goes a long way as far as the faux fur goes, and I don't think that they really needed any more than what they wound up using. He's got yellow eyes, so help me God, yellow eyes. Oh, and he does also have like a little loop in the back of his harness. I don't know if you can see that because of the fur sticking out of it, but you can put the battle axe into the loop. The fur is actually kind of getting in the way of that a little bit, and the harness is not really very pliable of a plastic as far as these Masters of the Universe harnesses go. But I finally got it in. Now let's see if I can get it out. Ugh. It's easier to get out than it is to get in. Better out than in, I always say. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about his articulation. Grizzlor can look up about that far, look down about that far, tilt his head kind of quizzically from side to side, rotate the head all the way around. You know, looking at Grizzlor now, I kind of wonder if maybe the design of Grizzlor was influential on the Masters of the Universe movie and their design of Beastman, because now that I think about it, he looked a lot more like Grizzlor than he did Beastman, didn't he? So anyway, let's talk about the articulations some more. So the arms, of course, rotate all the way around, and they move up about that far. He's got double jointed elbows, which straighten out about that much, and then that's about the range of motion you get at the elbows. So pretty good range of motion, and I don't think I mentioned before, he does have a bicep sole, so the bicep rotates all the way around. Of course, these hands rotate all the way around at the wrists, and this one has a horizontal hinge, and likewise, this one rotates all the way around and has a horizontal hinge. All of the hands have a horizontal hinge. Now, he does have the kind of Masterverse articulation, that articulation right underneath the rib cage. You can't really see it too much because of the fur, but that does move around. By the way, I'm not going to take it off because you saw what a hard time I had getting the thing to buckle, so I don't want to have to go through that again. But I'm probably going to be spitting out fur from my mouth for the next hour. but the harness, if you remove that, this fur piece actually does come off. So I don't think this is actually supposed to be like the character's fur, like growing out of his body, so much as it's like his clothing. So he's actually wearing a loincloth and a furry vest, and the only real fur on him is the kind of tan fur that you see throughout most of his body, and then he's got like dark hair and a beard, I guess is how you'd put that. So anyway, waist rotates all the way around, and then Grizzlor can kick up about that far, and he does have a thigh cut, so the thigh rotates all the way around. They got double jointed knees. That is about the range of motion you get at the knees. It does seem like it's a little hindered by his boot and how he has that bone trim on there that's kind of a unifying element of various Ford characters, where it's got little bones around the trim of the boots, and that does kind of hinder that slightly, I think. The boot cut does rotate all the way around, and he's got little Hordak emblems on the front of his boots. These are the same boots that Hordak has. At least the the shin portion of it, the shin armor, we'll put it that way. By the way, he also has the same wristbands as Hordak, and also obviously the armband. That's another Horde armband. So anyway, where was I? Oh yeah. So and then the ankle articulation, his ankle can point down about that far, point up about that far, and that rotates all the way around. So they did a pretty good job with Grizzlor, I think. And like I said, while I feel like it's probably like a cost-cutting measure that he didn't have the entire torso and the top of his head covered in the faux fur, like I think it actually works out really well the way that they did it. It's still like a really impressive looking figure, I think. Now, as a guy who had the original Grizzlor toy, I would have liked for Grizzlor to have had a yellow harness rather than a black one. And I think that probably would have stood out a little bit more against this dark brown fur than the black harness does. However, as I pointed out before, I'm pretty sure on the She-Ra cartoon, Grizzlor actually did have a yellow harness. So that actually is authentic to that. So yeah, I think they did a really good job with Grizzlor. Grizzlor is one of my favorite types of Masterverse figures, which is the characters that I didn't manage to get in classics. And Grizzlor has always been one of my favorite members of the Horde anyway. I was very disappointed when in the Origins line they decided to make Grizzlor some kind of online exclusive, and I was never able to get a hold of him. And he's selling for like, I think like $50 right now. And I'm like, screw that. That's like way too expensive for me to spend on something like that. So I'll probably never have the Origins version of Grizzlor. However, they did show at Toy Fair that they're going to have a cartoon collection version of Grizzlor. And that one's got all the fur sculpted into it. But unlike the Club Grayskull version of Grizzlor, where it was just kind of like this blobby thing with no furry texture sculpted into it and looked pretty impressive. So I will look forward to getting that. But that's a tale for another time. Once they actually release that, and I'm able to pick it up and make it part of my collection. But for now, I'm finally glad to have at least a Grizzlor in this scale. So that's really cool. Anyway, that's pretty much it for Grizzlor. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, make sure you like and subscribe and all the fun YouTube stuff down below. We're going to be doing a lot of Masters of the Universe in the next week or so. I've got a lot of Skeletor figures because Skeletor is like my favorite character in He-Man. So I've got some of those that I've been wanting to get caught up on as far as like variations on Skeletor. So we're going to have those to open. And even my first couple of Snake Men. I've got some Snake Men to show off. And I've got more Horde in the Origins. But that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed it. We will talk to you next time. Bye.